please start us off.
Okay, Angel,
Thank
could you start
you.
the recording, please?
I just did.
Yeah, we understand the recording stuff. Welcome everyone, and it's great to see you. Great to see so many faces. Many people who I know here, haven't seen in a bit anyway. Tammy, Jay Velasquez, love you guys, and so wonderful to see you, and all the bunch that we struggled together back in the day and continue doing so. So on behalf of continuations team, I want to welcome everybody to what is really our first fully deliberative membership meeting. This represents the next step in our growth and maturation as an organization, because in this meeting, we're going to discuss what we'll be doing as radical elders over the next year and who's going to coordinate that work. And that's new for us. It's a major next step. And we appreciate everyone being here to take that step for the organization to guide us in that work. We'll kick off the meeting with some presentations, and we're trying to make these as interesting as we can. So some of them are going to be interactive with slides. Some of them are actually videos, you'll see. We want to increase your involvement in the conversations. And so we're going to try to avoid, to the measure possible, talking heads like this one. And we've worked over a couple of months to make the meeting happen. And continuations team, we're really honored that you're to be working with radical elders and that you've all responded with your presence here. And we really are. Now, our meeting is supposed to last 2 hours. The goal of the meeting is to fully discuss the work plan and the leadership proposal we're going to make, and then make any appropriate changes and additions to those proposals. Based on those discussions and the discussions we have today and changes that we make, we'll edit the proposals, continuations team, and then present them to the entire membership for online voting, which is going to take place in the coming week, probably. It'll start in the coming week. So essentially what we're doing is we're preparing the proposals all of our members will vote on. We want to provide some instructions on how we're organizing our discussions and the protocol we want to follow in those conversations a bit later. For now, I think Cal has a slide that shows you Zoom. And since we're using Zoom, I just want to go over a couple of things with that. Can we do that, Cal, please? And you'll notice this is your Zoom screen, or it's supposed to look like it anyway. At the top, you see gallery or speaker view. And that means the gallery view is where you see a lot of boxes with a lot of faces, and we'll have a couple of pages of those. There's a blue arrow that puts you to the next page, and then to the previous page. So that's the gallery view. The speaker view, Zoom focuses in on one speaker, one visual, as the person is speaking. So if you're on speaker view, what you're seeing is me. So that's the difference there. We all have you unmuted right now. Don't take that personally. It's what we do naturally in meetings, because people may not know to mute and unmute yet before we start this conversation, this explanation. But you can unmute yourself whenever you want by pressing that button. That means people can hear your microphone as you're hearing mine. I'm unmuted. We want you to stay muted for until you need to be speaking to us through your microphone, because there's so much noise. So it's really important to do that. Some people may not want to be seen, or, as often happens, you may be seeing some kind of lag in the visuals or whatever. And if that's the case, you may want to turn your camera off. You can do that with that button. Okay? Then finally, not finally, but I wish it were finally, because the finally is to leave the meeting. I don't want you to do that. But the next one is the chat. Chat is a very important function in Zoom, very important in our meetings. because we use it to make comments that we normally don't want to make in public or vocally. And, at times we use it to ask for stack, which we'll explain later on, all of that. You'll excuse my voice, standing in my 5th day of COVID without any symptoms except I lose my voice. That's the one symptom. So you'll have to excuse me for that. But the chat button, and so monitor it. Open it periodically, see what people are saying. Finally, the button all the way to the right, it's the lead meeting button. If you have to leave the meeting, you touch that button. Don't. Stay with us. But if you have to, that's the way you leave. That's the way we turn the meeting off. So that's the thing. Ask in chat whatever you need to ask about the technology. Do not fail to ask if you're confused or if you need help with the technology. It's really important that you be able to use this, because it frames the experience you're going to have and the contribution you're going to make. If Cal would be good enough to flash our agenda for the day, I'll briefly go over that before turning us into the meeting itself. Our agenda is for about a 2-hour meeting, as I indicated. Let's see what we get here.
All right, I don't have it up. I wasn't ready to do that.
It's okay. If you can put it up now. I can tell you off the bat that it begins with Angel welcoming us, and that's definitely not our agenda. That's your email program. And with me giving the remarks I just gave, we'll flash it in a second, but I can tell you in advance that the next point is going to be the presentations of the organization's work plan, the proposed work plan that we're going to be proposing. And so what we'd like you to do, if possible, is to take a look at that while we're going over it, or hopefully you have taken a look at it already, or we'll take a look at it subsequently. How are we doing, Cal?
Well, I have our version of it with all of our notes, so I can put that one up. But I wasn't asked to do this originally. So, Sally, if you have a copy, maybe you can do it. I think Sally was going to put it in the chat initially.
All right, hang on. Is Sally doing that?
I don't know.
I'm opening it up.
Here, I'll just put up the version I have.
Yeah, just put up the version you have. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool. People don't mind our notes at all. So the presentation of the work plan is next. Those are videos you can see, and you'll be able to tell when you see the videos. Each person will introduce themselves. We'll then have a short explanation of the coordination team proposal. It's a very, very important proposal that we're making. Marilyn's going to explain that to you. And it could be part of the discussion that we go into later on. The third part is a series of model issue presentations. What we're basically doing is 3 teams of people of our coordination team are going to cover different kinds of issues that flow from the mini program that you have and that you've received a couple of times, and that is on our website. And they're going to talk about how those things relate to elder work, what kinds of things are being done, etc., just to give people an idea. We'll then go into our breakout rooms. Breakout rooms of about 45 minutes are probably the most important part of this meeting. That's when you talk with each other. And we want you to talk about the goals of the work plan, the timeline, etc., and to also select the facilitator, select a reporter who will report back to the full meeting. Those instructions will be given when we start those. And then, you see the 3 points there. Zaki will go over that when she breaks us out. And then we rejoin the meeting after a 5-minute break. We're going to take a 5-minute break, then rejoin the meeting. And we're going to have reports back from those breakout groups, and then a full open discussion of the reports back and whatever we discussed. Gonna try to get all this together and try to incorporate it into our work plan so that the entire organization, which is not here, obviously, can vote on it, has the opportunity to vote on it. We're going to try to get them to do that. So that's the thing. Thank you, Cal. That is our agenda. It's also in the website in the members section. People keep asking me password for the members section. It's very simple. It's remember, as in what you have to do, what I frequently cannot do, and what you are, which is a RE member. So that's what the password means. Dave Lindorf, could you please mute, if you'd be so kind? I am hearing, yeah. And with that, we're going to go right into our video presentations, and I hand it over to Cal to handle that technically, if you would, please. Fredo, and I want to talk about the first part of our work plan, the immersion strategy. While our proposed work plan seeks to offer all of our members an area of work or a task that can be done within our schedules and the possibilities we have, the immersion strategy is the one part of our work plan that can and should be worked on by all our members. It's based on the idea that our organization is part of the movement for fundamental social change, and that part of our organization's responsibility is to convince that movement to actively support the rights of elders to a sustainable and productive life. In other words, our mini program. And in doing that, we raise our movement's consciousness, we contribute to its effectiveness, and we move our own work agenda forward. All our members have one thing in common. We're all activists, work in some organization or movement or community, have contacts within it. We're active. Each of us also has a copy of that mini program. The emergence strategy involves going to every movement, organization, and community you work with and asking them to review the mini program and then discuss how they can support it. That's it. Then you can enter that organization or community into a form we'll have on the website to display everyone who's supporting us. And in that way, you'll be making a huge, huge contribution to our organization. It's a contribution to every organization you work with, and a huge contribution to Radical Elders and to our goals.
And the next one. Oh, shit.
And I want to talk.
Whoa.
Hello, I'm Maritza Arrastia, and I am going to be reading the project An Elder's Agenda to Live, Survive, and Thrive. The goals are to build a national mass movement of radical elders with local, regional, and national groups and actions, and to make the mini program actionable by founding the campaign on the key issues it highlights. The implementation will be organize mass consensus activities to construct an elders agenda, so members can approach elected of government bodies at the national, state, and local levels, already mobilized mass movements and communities and people to support the agenda. Develop a class action lawsuit against the US government, charging it with homicidal neglect against all elders and demanding a complete implementation of our program. We would wrap up with a Elder Survive and Thrive Day, a national mobilization and direct actions that include delivering our agenda to Congress, our legislative agenda, local mobilizations on the same day to do the same at state and city legislatures, and other mobilizations and actions. Thank you. I hope that you will think and discuss about this proposed action plan to live, survive, and thrive.
I'm Sally Gellert from ancestral Lenape land known by the colonial name of Bergen County, New Jersey. Radical Elders is a diverse group. Our only similarities may be that we are activists and elders, so the continuations team needed to determine where the group wants to focus. Part of our proposed work plan is to have working groups on issues that are most important to our members, so we need to decide what those issues are and had determined how members want to participate. To help figure this out, I created a survey that we forwarded multiple times to our membership email list, and we got about 35 responses. Not a great turnout, but a start. We need to do much better next week to approve the final plan and to select a coordination team. Here's a report on the results. Each issue has 3 bars in the chart. Top to bottom, blue, willing to work on the issue, purple, willing to advise and share expertise on the issue, and pink, willing to attend monthly meetings. The most interest was generated by privatization, capitalism, and democracy and fascism. Other issues were also selected, and there is, of course, overlap among many of the issues. For instance, privatization included healthcare, and access to free healthcare was also listed separately. Also, we asked what subjects we may have missed. Mentioned were racism, white supremacy, Palestine, and LGBTQ rights. Our next step will be to define how formal working groups will operate and to connect people who indicated interest in a specific topic. Some of our topics may be addressed through our immersion strategy of connecting organizations and campaigns already working on the issue.
Greetings. My name is Sam Anderson. I'm part of the Radical Elders Continuations Committee, as well as the Radical Elders Oral History Project, which we are developing, just launching now, and we would like for you to join us in this effort, because we as Radical Elders have a lot to offer to other younger Radical Elders, as well as public schools, public libraries, colleges, community organizations, on how we can improve and advance our struggle for liberation, struggle against capitalism, and so forth. So please join us in this effort. You will hear more about it as we develop it in the few months coming. Thank you.
In addition to the work plan, the membership will also be voting in the coming week on a coordination team slate. The continuations team, an unelected voluntary group of some of us, felt it was time for Radical Elders to move towards becoming a more established organization. However, we also felt that Radical Elders is not yet developed enough to have a full nominations and election process. We decided that the first step would be to establish a member-approved group of people with a clear mandate and set of responsibilities. That mandate would be to develop actions to realize the goals of the work plan and to report back regularly to the Radical Elders membership. In the coming year, the coordinations team would meet once a month and organize 3 meetings like this one of the entire Radical Elders membership. We put together a slate of people who have been active in the formation of Radical Elders, and a link for statements about each of the proposed members for this coordinations team will be posted in the chat. Next, we wanted to give you a sense of some of the actions we're considering to move forward on the work plan. We hope that once the work plan is modified and approved based on your feedback at this meeting and the vote in the coming week, that our members will join and or modify one or more of these actions or other actions that you propose that start realizing the goals of our work plan. First, Ted and Sally will discuss climate. Then Howard and Dorothea will discuss public health. And finally, Sam will discuss public education.
Okay, it's nice to see everybody. Glad that we're doing this. Here's what I would want to put forward in terms of climate, the climate issue. The climate emergency is serious and immediate as a survival issue for all life forms on the planet. It particularly impacts people of color and people of low wealth and income, those who have done the least to cause the overheating of the Earth's atmosphere and oceans. This emergency also has specific impacts on elders who are structurally forgotten much too often by the capitalist powers that be. In addition, there's the issue of heat waves, which are growing in this country and worldwide in frequency, in length, and in intensity. And those particularly impact low-income elders who can't afford or have poor quality air conditioning and difficulty going outside in high heat. In addition, it's difficult for many elders to evacuate their homes when a major, and we're seeing this right now, of course, in Florida. It's difficult for many elders to evacuate their homes when a major storm is coming and evacuation orders or recommendations have been given. I believe I saw an article just today, probably in the New York Times, about the particular much more significant impact on elders in Fort Myers, Florida, in terms of deaths. On a positive note, the climate justice movement in the United States just won an important victory. After the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act by Congress in August, legislation that had both good aspects and bad aspects, Joe Manchin and top Democrats tried to pass a side deal to that legislation. If passed, it would have accelerated approvals of new fossil fuel projects, made it more difficult for frontline groups fighting new projects to slow or defeat them, strengthen the power of the fossil fuel industry, and would specifically have mandated approval of the Mountain Valley Pipeline, which, if completed, would run from West Virginia through Virginia to North Carolina. This dirty side deal was defeated because of determined, unified action by many hundreds of groups, led by our environmental justice, people of color organizers, leading to 85 House and Senate Democrats coming out against it in opposition, which led to its defeat. It was a significant development in the fight in our country against the fossil fuel industry. Sally?
I got to unmute. There's a real opportunity for intergenerational action on this issue. Youth are extremely active internationally. The latest climate strike by Fridays for the Future on September 23rd included 650 actions. Young folks in the Sunrise Movement, Extinction Rebellion, and other groups are fighting for a cleaner future. And as their parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles, we can support their efforts. Our experience and their energy and enthusiasm is a dynamite combination. We longtime climate activists have a role in pointing out the many false solutions that corporate actors and their politicians keep suggesting. Methane gas may be natural, but it's anything but clean. The latest boondoggle is a proposal to capture methane from animal waste at concentrated animal feeding operations, which themselves create a multitude of problems. Almost all carbon capture and sequestration is a false solution. Too often, the captured carbon dioxide is used to produce more dirty fossil fuels, and the proposed CO2 pipelines are just as dangerous as the oil and gas pipelines that so many frontline communities have been and are still fighting. Keeping old growth forests healthy and encouraging regenerative farming practices using organic practices are exceptions. Old-time peace and energy activists know the dangers of nuclear power, from its mutually beneficial relationship with the military, Oh, I was going to let you see me. To the never-ending peril of radioactive waste and the devastation of uranium mining. The latest proposed energy source is hydrogen, and that has major issues and questions. But instead of all this, radical elders are advocate for real solutions, informed community participation in decision-making, not meaningless public comment periods, but actual consultation. We want local cooperative ownership of new clean renewable projects with more distributed generation. We know that some communities, particularly low-income people of color, do not have access to their fair share of energy, whether for heating or cooling. And elders, often in limited economic circumstances, are frequently the ones in that situation. However, for most US residents and those in wealthier countries, reducing energy use is critical if we are to mitigate climate chaos. Over time, that will lead to degrowth of polluting and ecologically destructive industry. What we need most is widespread mass adoption of what we called for on that first Earth Day back in 1970, an ethic of ecosystem protection. Green amendments to state constitutions and laws affirming the rights of nature are legislative next steps. And next we will hear from Dorothea and Howard on public health and elders.
I think we're going to have a film next.
I can't do that while the slides are up.
Here is the story we have been told in Columbus's travel journal. They were discovered. But there is no such thing as alternative facts. There is something we need to talk about. 3 words that summarize the whole history of humanity: civilization, colonization, extermination. This is the origin of the ideology of white supremacy. This is me in the middle, and I just want to understand. Why do I bring myself into this story? Because I am an immigrant from a shithole country. Neutrality is not an option. It's time to own up to a basic truth, a story of survival and violence. We know now what their task truly is. Exterminate all the brutes.
So we think the capitalist success story of killing at least 28 million people, that's excess deaths, a much more accurate way to measure it for COVID, is based on at least 1,000 years of history of exterminating all the brutes. This is not a series of errors, it's a series of consequences from what has happened, planned out in the White House, planned out at 10 South Downing Street, planned out throughout the capitalist countries. Root causes of COVID, I think we're all familiar with this, but the key thing here is the destruction of forests that's going on daily. And of course, this doesn't just push out animals, it pushes out people. It causes the greatest amount of mass migration in recorded history, now over 100 million people, according to the United Nations. The root causes of COVID. If you haven't seen the movie Contagion, we'd really recommend it, particularly the last few minutes, where it clearly explains how the natural roost of bats is being destroyed every minute during this presentation and during this conference. How you have both domestic and wild animals who are called intermediate hosts, and how then this spreads to humans and among humans. This is true, of course, for all the major virus epidemics, pandemics, and outbreaks that we've seen in at least the last 20 years, and certainly probably before that, including HIV. What does this mean in terms of concrete things that have happened under COVID with our own governments, federal, state, and local? Number one, of course, is the refusal to share the vaccine with the global South. Number two is mass increases, not just in profits, but in the merger of capital with the government, so that instead of health departments distributing vaccine, most of the vaccine went to CVS, Walgreens, and other huge pharmacies. Public health department's oversight in things like nursing home, which directly affected the deaths of thousands of elderly. Worse, much worse in nursing homes that were primarily people of color. The question of privatizing testing, contact tracing vaccines, not just to for-profit corporations, but a major, huge increase in nonprofit industrial complex led by Partners in Health, the late Paul Farmer, the great unmasking, which put millions of workers, school children, teachers, and many other people at risk. All this increased class, racial, gender disparities faster than at any time in recorded history. For example, longevity, depending on what part of the country you're in, but overall, longevity decreased between 2 and 3 years among African Americans and Latinos, and up to 4 years among Native Americans in just a 2-year period since COVID began. We're here to really talk with people, to work with people, to listen what you're doing about redeveloping people's public health, of going out to where people already live, work, and play, not to basically have people make appointments in a privatized racist medical system, and not to have the militarized FEMA, who never did mass vaccination or testing in history, be the primary force from the federal government under the Department of Homeland Security. The people's response. We have a group in Chicago that's also had somewhat of a national presence called the People's Response Network. We try to base our work on adapting what we did over 50 years ago in the Rainbow Coalition in Chicago and across the country with the Black Panthers and the Young Lords. On the left, you'll see the Black Community Survival Conference at Oakland College 50 years ago. In the middle on the right is what we did with 200 people last week here in Chicago. It's now Dorothea's turn.
Dorothea, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Hi, everybody. I'm really glad to see everyone here. To follow up on Howard's presentation, which is the same one, I'm just adding another piece, which is our health, and particularly the health of our elders. As everything that we live, everything that we're exposed to affects us, especially the elderly. We have been exposed to some of the how can I put it? We've been exposed to just about everything that is negative, and already in the communities that are suffering from inequities and disparities, we continue to struggle against a system that considers us disposable. So one of the things that we want to stress is that we have to organize a people's health response. And we hope that it will be a national movement. So I have placed just a couple of points of how we're impacted. So we have the inadequate housing. We know about the rodents and the bugs that carry disease. It's just an anxiety that comes from our struggle to survive, has been pointed out very, very clearly in Maritza's earlier presentation, and in some of the points that Howard's already made. Health education and information does not reach the communities, the low-income communities and communities in color in particular, that would help us to participate in our own health, our prevention of the diseases that have been, the rates have been higher in our communities than in others because we don't have the appropriate information. And witnessing the COVID pandemic, where there's been a lot of confusion and a lot of misinformation, makes this point very, it emphasizes this point. We understand in climate change, when we talk about climate change and we look at it on a global scale, we'll see that elders are the highest, I believe the data says it's the highest number of deaths are elders. And that's not just in the United States of North America, but on a global level. Employment, we know that the lowest paying jobs are being held by the poor, international workers, also known as immigrants, and people of color. We have the highest rates of the jobs that have the risks, the highest risks, deaths, illness that are related, but more importantly, the local, state, and federal levels of agencies have not totally, but ignored enough of those violations that would have saved our lives. So we need to respond not just by reading data, but also to organize the people, talk to the unions that are already organized, our rank and file is there to respond back. We need a response by the people as we have in the past. The civil rights is evidence of that. The movement against the war in Vietnam. So we're calling and saying that we must organize a people's health movement. Next slide. Howard, next slide. So this is a statement that we have from listening to people talk to us about their situations as elders and workers and people of color. We have put together this statement that says, we the people shall collaborate and organize with community-based grassroots organizations, health workers, labor unions, schools, and I can't see what the other one is, affected communities to establish local and regional health networks with the uniting goal to form a people's health movement on a national level. Thank you. Sorry, I cut myself. I muted myself. I didn't mean to do that. So if you look at the list of demands that have already been listed, I think that you can see that these are demands that are ongoing from other chronic diseases that have not, and people that have not received the appropriate treatments. For instance, I'm going to pull out on the free school meals. Before COVID, families had to apply, for eligibility for free breakfast and lunch, and it was suspended during COVID, and this program ended June 30th, when one of the demands is to reinstate that. So the list that you see is, some of them are demands to reinstate the emergency need, to address emergency needs that have, arisen with the COVID, and the others are to just reinstate some of the lapsed, I'm sorry, sometimes I can't pronounce them right, lapsed, programs that have kind of like teetered out. They're there on the books, but they're not being practiced. So I'm hoping that we see this as one of the demands when we talk about organizing a movement.
Okay, my name is Sam Anderson, along with Marilyn and Maritza. We've pulled together a Radical Elders Education Demands and Actions, a set of demands and actions. Elders are fully alive until our last breaths, and like all humans, are lifelong learners. We demand access to lifelong free public education, as is the right of all humans. And education for elders includes our right to be educators and share our experiences, legacies, and knowledge of many subjects through the projects such as oral histories, Radical Elders Collaboratives, and others. We also see the right to be free, the right to free public education on health and resources that can support our full human life. Education about elders in society that can support our agency within it and our opportunities to deploy ourselves as a key constituency among those fighting to create a system where everyone lives well and not just a few living better. This includes education, specifically on the climate emergency caused by classism, racism, environmental injustice, capitalism, and imperialism, with the emphasis on solutions to support our agency on this life and death issue. Also, education on ending racism, sexism, and various injustices in our world, and on how to resist and transform them. And education on life-enhancing practices of our choice, supporting our wellness and creativity. Even though we're old, we're still creative. Education on all and any content we are interested in. Now, we have suggested 5 actions. Create an action plan to enact the following projects and others to be determined. Organize a Radical Elders Education Collaborative. Fight against the privatization of public education as one aspect of the Radical Elders' fight against the capitalist plunder of our common wealth. Advocate on a local, state, and national level for the rehiring of elders willing and able to teach and to help address the shortage of public school educators, including addressing bureaucratic hurdles and ultimately situating this mandate in the United States Department of Education. And to create an interactive digital archive of Radical Elders' oral history. And we're open to other suggestions as we develop this. And now we will hear from Sister Zakia for our next part of the agenda.
Thank you, brother. Well, it is my pleasure to give out instructions, if you will, for how we're going to move into the breakout rooms. We're going to go into the breakout rooms for 40 minutes, and we want you to discuss the presentations you have heard. Give us your thoughts on the work plan. What is good? What is bad or indifferent? Cal, Brother Cal, can we have the etiquette slide, as we call it?
Also, Mr. Key, you may want to show yourself on camera. I'm not sure if you do, but in case.
Yeah, that was an accident. Thank you. So everybody's going to be divided. Cal's done that. Brother Cal has divided everybody up into breakout rooms. And we just want to go over the meeting etiquette that we came up with. Please write stack in the chat if you want to speak. Everyone is heard once before anyone is heard twice. Step up, step back. Outspoken folks yield. More reserved folks, we want to hear from you. Wait, why am I talking? New thoughts welcome. I think that's it for me.
We'll be asking facilitators to get someone to volunteer to be a scribe and a reporter. And we will have people, either the scribe or someone else, report back to the main group. You'll have 2 minutes each, and we'll have a short break after the breakout room to put your thoughts together, but think concisely as you write.
Yes, thank you, Sally, because one thing I did want to bring up is that I've been asked to time the report backs. You'll have 2 minutes. I'll give you a 15-second warning before your 2 minutes is up, and we ask that everybody respect that because we want to hear from every breakout group and keep to the time we asked for. Thank you.
And the breakout rooms are 40 minutes.
All right, so so everybody, there are 7 rooms with approximately 6 people in each. There are four of the team there's only going to be 7 breakout facilitators, so the 4 members of the team that will just be members of the breakouts. Except for Zakia, I've removed the asterisks from your names and you're in the groups. Darte and Zakia, I'll meet you in a separate room and we'll sort that out. You'll have 40 minutes. You'll get at the top of your screen, you'll get a couple of warnings about how much time you'll have left. We'll let you know about the halfway point, then you'll see a 60-second countdown timer, and then we'll come back into the main room before we go on our break. If you need help when you're in the breakout, there's a ask for help button, and the hosts will see it and will come into your room and see what's going on. If there's a technical problem or any other kind of problem. Okay?
Cal, excuse me for, I'm sorry. There is a text conversation going on where we're saying maybe we could do it with 5 or 6 rooms. Do you think 7 is necessary?
Well, if you want to wait 3 or 4 minutes for me to reshuffle the groups, I will. It's up to you.
No, it's up to you. I mean, we have,
Now let's go with what we've got. Just for.
I mean,
does that mean?
6 or 7 people is not bad, but I can, sure, I'll make one more group. It'll take me about 2 minutes. Give me about 2 minutes so somebody else can talk while I'm doing that.
So if you cut it down to 5 groups, though, I think that you'll end up with groups of about 7. Some will
No.
have 7, some have 8 in it.
No, we have 7 groups with 6 people in each.
If everybody goes into a group, yeah.
Well, everybody's going to be moved automatically into the group.
All right.
It's going to happen. Okay. So is
Yeah.
that good enough? 6 people per group plus a facilitator?
Yeah.
I can make
guess.
one more group. All right, let me do it.
You don't have to make another one. I'm saying to make less, make the groups larger.
Oh, 7. So 7 people. Oh, I see. Consolidate. All right. Yeah. Some people have actually dropped off. So I'm going to
Yeah.
move them. All right. Let me shuffle. I need 2 minutes.
Thanks.
I feel like the Wizard of Oz. You're seeing behind the curtain how it really works.
Just a thought. If we have fewer groups, we could have another minute to report.
Yeah.
Where are we in relation to our proposed agenda time? I think we're running on time, late. What?
We're a little late.
Oh, okay.
So it was a 4:50. We're now at 4:55. So
Just a little late. We're okay.
Okay. Yep. I need another minute.
If you've got, Karen, where is the People's Public Health Conference? Well, we've got a break. Make an
Yeah,
announcement.
it's all virtual. It's November 3rd through 5th. And yesterday was the last day to submit abstracts. But I think it's organized by people who are fed up with APHA's masking policy.
How do we get involved in that conference?
It
Karen?
may be a good way to present this group there.
Right, how do we, is there a link you could put?
Oh, yeah,
Right.
it's thepeoplespublichealth.org. And it's free with a suggested donation. I'll put that in the chat. Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Everyone will be moved into a breakout group. You don't have to answer any prompts, or just automatically be moved there. And I think we're ready to go. So, 40 minutes from now, that'll be 38 minutes past the hour, we'll come back.
Hi, Cal, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can see
You got to the waiting room and there's someone else in our room and I think Andrea Lyman.
Well,
Someone-
there's two Andrea Lymans listed.
I think,
Andrea, if you can hear us, would you unmute yourself? If you don't hear us, then means you're settled in your room. Can you make me co-host again? Because I lost that.
oh, sure, okay.
I also ended my recording. Did you pause the recording?
No, not yet. I'm gonna do it now. I was gonna tell you that before I did mine. Okay, so I'm gonna pause mine then now. Okay,
Wait a minute, I haven't, okay, there we go. Okay. I got my recording going again. So I left Zakia hanging in a room by herself. I gotta go over there.
okay, now I have Roy Murphy's asking for help.
And what room is that in?
Room 6, Roy Murphy's asking for a joint breakout room.
All right, let me go over there.
Okay, now I'll call Andrea Lyman. I know who she is. Okay,
Okay, all right. Well,
maybe,
just put this in the same breakout that she's already in because there were two underlinements originally.
okay, let me just see where she, or you do that, I'll look for her.
But she might have dropped one of them. I don't remember.
I can hear you. I don't know what you want me to do.
Are you also in a breakout room with people, or are you, because there were two of you originally when you first came on?
I don't know why there'd be two. I didn't go into it twice,
Oh,
but
okay,
I believe you.
Okay, you may have to agree to go into the breakout room, I believe. There's some kind of a prompt.
No, I said it. I don't think so. You have to just set it up.
Okay, so let's see what room.
Not sure why she's unassigned. It doesn't show anybody was unassigned, but
Okay, so I'm just gonna put her, you want to just put her in a room?
I don't think I can because she's not unassigned. It's kind of weird. And Andrea, I'm afraid you probably have to go off the call and come back again. I'm sorry. And we can then put you in a breakout.
You want me to, I can come and do that.
Yeah, because I don't have any way to get you into a breakout right now for some reason. I don't know why.
I could put her in a waiting room, it says from this point. Should I do that?
You can put her back in the waiting room and then bring her back and see if
Okay, I'll do that. And that's it. Okay, now bring her back in.
Okay. I don't know what happened to Zakia. I tried to get her, but she must have gone off to the bathroom or something.
Okay, now Roy Murphy, you'll talk to him on room 6 and I'll deal with Andrea.
I will, but let's get Andrea in.
Yeah, she's joining, it says now in the waiting, from the waiting room.
I know, so go ahead. Let's bring her back in and see if I can reassign her.
Okay, you'll do that? Okay.
Yeah, is she back?
I'm going to pause my recording at this point.
And admit, yes, please do.
I hope that the discussions were lively, exciting, and productive. So we're looking forward to hearing a report backs from our, their comrades. So just to remind you, each reporter has 2 minutes, and our lovely timekeeper Zakia will give us she'll give us the 15, I think it's 15 seconds wrap up. So we'd like to start with group number 1.
That's Tammy Gold.
Where is Tammy? Tammy, are you here? Where are you? Okay.
Tammy is not on the call.
Maybe Tammy's not ready, so then we're going to move right along to group number 2.
There's no group 2. The next group is 3.
Okay, so we'll go to group number 3.
All right, that's me. Can you hear me?
Who is me?
Yes.
Yes, we can. We could hear you.
I have my pad, the iPad with my notes, so that's what I'm looking at. That's why I don't see you, or maybe you don't see me. Right?
We see you.
Okay,
No,
all right.
we see you. Everybody else
Okay.
cover this, mute this so we
Oh,
can
I
just see Blanca.
Let me do the report because that's what I have in front of me. All right. In general, we thought, by the way, we had a long time before we actually started. We had a lot of technical difficulties. So we didn't get to all the discussion. But anyway, on the emergent strategy plan, yes, we affirmed that we did find ageism and maybe younger leaders not listening. We see the need for intergenerational conversation and in practice, not as an afterthought. We did note that some of us are not used to being older. Don't need to acknowledge that we are. That it's good to see these issues raised in organizations. What we did not see is the issue of elders as workers, that a lot of elder people are still working, you know, whether it's for health insurance or they just need the income. So that is also an issue.
15 seconds.
Okay, let me get to the recommendations. We want to say that allyship, talking in a language that shows our commonalities in struggle, is really important. And to look for ways in which the different issues we're working on are interconnected. And a good example of that was we should be talking about a living wage, not a minimum wage. Voting people that are in voting struggles, that attempts to prevent people of color from voting are really attempts to prevent also the elderly from voting. We vote at very high rates. So again, look for ways that we interconnect the struggles that we're addressing.
Thank you.
Lead was the other advice. When you work,
Okay.
let them lead. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. And
Tammy is back.
the next group is number 4. Howard?
Oh, yes.
Howard, you're room number 4? Group
So
number 4.
we had a really wonderful group, and we spent time talking on several issues. One, a little bit about abolition of the police, certainly on the issue of elders are disposable, the question of racism and anti-racism. And then we spent a long time talking about housing, the question of the myth of affordable housing, particularly for seniors and particularly for seniors of color, the question of how to fight annexation, which is in particular going on in the South, eminent domain by private developers through officials that are basically bought off in cities and counties, elected officials backing developers, and the question of what are we going to do about public housing, which the left seems to have abandoned for at least the last 30 years. We also talked about the question of lack not only of healthcare, but once people get to healthcare, they're sent home unprepared in terms of whether it's medication, getting help at home, particularly seniors, lack of overall.
Excuse me, 15 seconds.
And last but not least, the whole paradigm and quandary of encouraging young people to go to college, but it getting more and more unaffordable.
Okay, thank you, Howard. I see that Tammy is back, so we're going to hear from Tammy. You're muted. Tammy, you have to unmute yourself,
sorry.
please.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
No apology necessary.
Okay. So we were a small group, but lively. I've heard that in my life before. So we were basically talking about education and education liberation. So part of the discussion was really to get context and where we see things. 40%, we've lost 40% of Black faculty. And so a lot of what we discussed was how do we confront these things? Schools are multiracial, are multicultural, excuse me, people of color communities, yet the teachers remain white. And address how we can have an impact in, we didn't say impact in what, but I think what we want to do is make some of these things more visible. How can we work to get elders who are teachers or who have been teachers into the classroom, because we have a lot to offer. And we see problems with this, it raises unions, it raises, do people get paid? And some felt like this could begin on a volunteer basis. We see that there's a mass defunding of education and schools are becoming deprofessionalized. Some of what I got out of the discussion is that there needs to be among ourselves some discussion of what's happening in school. For example, there's programs like Teach for America. We need to understand among ourselves how these foster inequity within the public education system.
15 seconds.
Okay. Oh, I have all the details about that. One thing that we need to bring up, and we did not have a big discussion about, and that's prisons. And we have to start as elderly, we have to start taking the demand as elderly people ourselves for immediate release of all elderly prisoners. Maybe that I said that incorrectly. Somebody could help me if I'm saying it wrong. And so I have lots and lots of notes that I wrote here, but I think the takeaway, since there's very little time, is that we want to see a group of us and invite others who can work on how we can go back into the classrooms and offer a lot of what we've learned and leadership.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Did I skip group 3 or am I mistaken? Is group
No, we
3,
did.
Blanca?
Yeah, we
We
did.
got 3, we need
Okay,
5,
thank-
9, and I'm not sure if there are others.
Okay, well, we can hear from Marilyn from group 5, please.
Okay. What we discussed first, a number of people raised that we should be clear in Radical Elders on the difference between demands and goals. For some people, it felt like our program was more about demands and that we might not get, to put it mildly, our demands from those in power, but that there are, if we state things in terms of goals and then think about strategies, some of it may be to put pressure on those in powers, but others can be work in our communities. In terms of, there are a number of different ideas about the immersion strategy. Some people said that maybe we should, as Radical Elders, be involved in some specific projects first and then go to our groups and try to get support from those groups. But others said that they joined even in order to have Radical Elders figure out how Radical Elders can help with the groups that are already working on the ground. The idea of the class action lawsuit was thought it's a great idea, but it's very overwhelming and it's very long range, and that perhaps a more realistic and better way of building towards that was to build towards a day of action, a demonstration of solidarity and connection. And another discussion we had on the oral history project is people seem to like the idea of youth interacting with elder activists. And we also talked about ways of
15 seconds, please.
Being in the schools. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Do we have a group 6?
No, the next group will be 9, and then there was Alfredo who was moved to group 10. So we have 9. and
Okay.
10.
Thank you very much, Cal. Okay, so Michael, you're on.
Okay, we have a list. Change homicidal, the word homicidal in the implementation section to something like deliberate, serious, egregious, or disproportionate. Delete the word all from all elders. Don't lose the focus on class. The wisdom team should not preclude or exclude people, other people speaking for Radical Elders. Don't want to create 2 classes of members who speak for the group. All for adding people to the coordinating team. There should be an allowance for more than 11. The question of whether the coordination team should be open to all members or can be open to members who listen and then have time to comment but don't participate in the debate. The team should be able to figure it out what's appropriate to each topic and be as transparent as possible. Whoops, something just happened to my notes. They disappeared. Hold on. Oh, there they go. Make our work in the sentence that says, make our work and program part of the work of the entire left of the United States. The feeling was it sounds a little bit grandiose. Remove the word entire from entire left. Substitute progressive forces for left or have left and progressive forces. Under themes, omit, the themes is an incomplete list that we should refer to the mission statement, which is more inclusive because
15 seconds, please.
right, things like imperialism and foreign policy, racism, LGBTQ rights, human rights, civil liberties, women's rights are omitted from that list. And they're all important topics that need to be referenced. With the acknowledgement that what we work on will be determined by what the people who are doing the work want to work on. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So this has been like really great reporting back and exciting. And we're going to go into the next segment, which is.
Hold on, we have one more.
We have one more. What group? 10. I'm sorry. That's right. You have there. Okay. So the next group is 10, and I believe it's Alfredo. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, cut you
It's
out.
Dave Britton.
It's
Moving
yeah.
fast.
This is Dave.
Hi, Dave.
I took notes for our group.
Okay.
Try to hit
Sorry.
try to hit the main points. Speed dogging here. Folks identified a few things that need to be explicit in the work plan, particularly health care, and in general, sort of the need to be explicit about Medicaid for all. The international workers, immigrants issues was important, should be added to the mini program. We did have discussions about how do we actually affect change on these issues? What are the things? And it was Alfredo identified that there's plans to have a media team when we raise some of the stuff, and this whole notion that we're going to take experienced folks in here who have connections to other groups. We're going to bring this group to the other groups. Concerns about the left isn't unified, but it's huge. We need to take an elders agenda that's specific to us and add it to the broader based social change agenda, rather than trying to compete with it or change the focus. All of these things need to be looked together. We need to add our agenda and bring that to younger folks, such as those working in unions. The people, the activists now who are younger are paying attention, and the younger folks particularly seem to be interested in finding elder role models, and that is a thing we should be looking for. How can we plug ourselves in as activists in this whole thing? One issue that came up was the rise of fascism and authoritarianism. That's very important.
15 seconds, please.
Yeah, we haven't added that to our group. We probably should. Let's see. Vaccines and medication being equitably distributed internationally is something we should be explicit about. We need connections with new younger people who are rising in electoral politics is something that we should be making sure we're thinking about and talking about.
Thank you. And I want to apologize to like the first three groups. I made a mistake with my timer and I robbed you.
Well, we might have.
Later groups are happy to have used the time well. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there another group that I missed that I should, present?
The first.
Hello?
Yeah, that's all the groups, and
That's all the groups as well.
And
Thank
I want
you
to
very
remind
much.
the note takers, if you would, if you have more detailed notes and you want us, the team, to know about it, please get them put into the pad, because we're going to go through all the pads and look what's there.
Okay, thank you, Cal. So thank you, everybody, for those great, the report backs. Now we're going to be moving into what I think is probably the best segment, which is everybody will be able to discuss. You can bring up like some questions or make comments on maybe what you didn't get a chance to do in the group or in the other, the other conversations that we've been having. So Sally is going to be a co-facilitator for this segment, and our lovely timekeeper Zakia will continue to give us, the signs, the signals that we have wrapping up the time. I think I'm trying to think too fast. Okay.
Excuse me though,
Thank you for your
Dorothea,
patience.
sister,
Yes.
I don't know the timing on this one. I must have forgotten my instruction.
Anything. 2
This is
minutes
what
per person.
Sally's going to address, okay?
Thank you.
All right, Sally. Thank you, everybody, for your patience with my going back and forth, trying to, like do the translation in my brain and out my mouth. Thank you. Go ahead, Sally.
Okay, so as a reminder, I'm putting in the chat our etiquette slide info. So if you want to speak, put Stack in the chat. I will try and keep Stack and facilitate at the same time. Oh, thank you, Cal. 2 minutes each. We recognize that it is 6 o'clock. If you have to drop off, we'd hate to have you miss this discussion, but we understand. Meanwhile, okay, we've got some names. Let's start with Michael.
Yeah, I have two short points. One is, I think we need the coordination team or the leadership team needs to think about how we develop good mentorship and good allyship with young people. Not everybody knows how to be a good mentor. And I think sometimes we talk down to people that are younger than us, or assume that we have all the knowledge or wisdom and neglect them. So I think we have to work on that. The second thing, there's been no reference to it, but I'm aware of the development Bill McKibben has been working on called Third Act, which addresses the same audience, although not exclusively left. And I think at some point we're going to have to figure out what our relationship or connection is to that broader group of elders as we go along, as we develop something. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, Roy?
Oh, yes, I just wanted to suggest that we're looking at a whole program of things here. I think a couple of things as regards the overall structure of what we're looking at. One is to get a feeling from the meeting whether they think that all the proposals that are put forth in the work proposal and so forth, and the nominations and things, whether everybody generally agrees with that. And the second thing is there anybody who is very much opposed to any of those aspects? No, just to get an overall agreement between us.
Joe?
Jose? No.
Yeah, there are two Jose's. There's a Jose and then there's Jose Velasquez.
Before Jose, we've got Joe, iPhone 42, Joe Berry.
I didn't see him on my screen. Okay.
Cal also has his hand up. I don't know if he wants to talk. He's had his hand up this whole time.
No, that was left over. I'm sorry.
He's muted. Sally, I think he's muted.
Yeah, do we have Joe?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
right there,
we can hear
yes.
you. Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm doing this on my phone and I've never done this, a Zoom on my phone before, so I'm kind of confused. I want to agree strongly with what Michael Eisenschur said. I want to apologize for being late to this, but I was doing a union thing. And I want to suggest that along the same lines, we need to be, I think, having a group, a non-sectarian, across the left group of radical elders is a really good thing. And I want to thank Alfredo and the leadership who've been putting time into trying to pull this together. And secondly, I want to say we need to relate to other groups that overlap with us strongly. Bill McKibben's group was mentioned. I think many union retiree chapters should be on the list of people to relate to, especially the leaderships of those groups tend to be left people in many cases. And some of them are us. And also I don't know whether they function nationally anymore or not, but the Gray Panthers defined itself as a, as a radical group of elders, and they still function in San Francisco and the East Bay in California and perhaps other places. And we should have a relationship with them. We should not be trying to, we should be trying to build, coalition around common stuff and not be trying to reinvent the wheel with a completely separate organization. We need to survey the group. The last thing I want to say is we, as our generation, the baby boomer and slightly before generation that's present here, we were not the recipient of generally good mentoring and a generational handoff from the previous generation of radicals. It wasn't completely their fault because of the Cold War and stuff. But,
excuse me, please wrap up.
and our attitudes toward them weren't very good. But we need to do a better job than the previous generational handoff took place. And I think Michael's suggestion of specifically talking about how best to mentor this much more receptive group. Thank you.
Okay, Jose is next.
I'm going to be real quick. I need to make this note. Oh, which Jose are we talking about?
I think I was first. I think I'm first. So I'm going to be real quick. 2 points. The first is that I think it's really important, yes, to talk about class, but at the same time, I think it's really important to talk about race and the intersectionality of race and class. So I don't want to negate that point about race. The second point is this issue of talking down to young people. I don't know, I've been in a number of groups with young people. I found that they're doing incredible, many of them do incredible work. And compared to the work that we did back in the 60s, 70s, et cetera, in many ways, not always, they are far more advanced than we were. So those are my 2 points.
Okay.
And now I'll pass it to the other Jose.
Jose Velasquez.
So this is really concrete. I want to make a motion that we approve the proposal for the continuations team and the 11 people that were nominated. We have to do that in order to continue our work. And that's something very specific. And just, maybe we can just agree that there's a consensus on that point.
Okay, thanks, Jose, but actually, we don't really have to do that today. What we wanted to do is get this proposal. The proposal is that this continuation team continues until that vote is done, which we'll be doing by email over the next week, so that the other
I got it. Okay.
members. So,
okay.
Thank you for your support.
I see. All right.
Absolutely. And Alfredo, you've got the next stack person.
Yeah, thank you. That was one point I wanted to raise, that what is going to be an online vote commencing in like 3 days on all of the proposals that all members can then participate in, because a lot of our members are not here. They couldn't make it for whatever reason. They should have a right to vote. On this question being raised about Bill's group and the Great Panthers, we are very conscious and have been in leadership, have been very conscious of the importance of doing that. And we also have to be conscious of the fact that our constituency and approach is different from what Bill is trying to do with that organization he's doing, and also with the Great Panthers. We do have a very, very strong intentionality in terms of leadership of color and women, et cetera, that makes us kind of distinct. But I think our intention has always been to express and to practice enormous amounts of unity with those in every project we possibly can with those other formations. I think we need to do that. I mean, it has to be done. So I appreciate those comments that a number of people have made, including what Joe has said, and I think there's general agreement thus far that we should move in that direction.
All right, Tammy is next on stack. I'm seeing some support there.
Okay. Hi. Jose was talking about how young people and young young people in left organizations are, it was a positive statement, and I fully agree. As somebody who's been in a lot of organizations within the Jewish Palestine area, I think that, and also radical Jews, I think there's a problem. And I think that there's ageism. And the ageism is, many of us are moving away. I've been involved with JVP, Jewish Voice for Peace. I'm one of the people who started it in New York City. And I have been eclipsed. And, you know, so I could really cite examples, as with Jews for Racial and Economic Justice. So I'm uncomfortable if we don't address ageism within the left. And that needs to be front and center, because people move away when they experience that. And there's isolation with that. And we know the isolation and elders go hand in hand, and we have to rip that apart. And some of that is with left and progressive groups.
Okay,
I'm
so
putting myself on stack briefly. I have one group that has encountered a similar issue with the ageism, with trying to work with a group of younger folks and seeing where the generation gap is and how to deal with that. And I said something.
Sally?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to call out the time is 6:14.
Yeah, let's, if, I don't have anybody on stack at the moment. So
Okay,
if we want to go through a wrap up.
Angel,
please.
Yes, I'd like to introduce our wonderful tech person, and also he's gonna say a few words, you know, thanking us. And
I see Howard has, I did know that Howard raised his hand. So, yep. You want to get one last thing before we go to
Hey, Howard, can you be quick, because we're over time, and Angel, I'm calling on Angel to do the closing words.
Yeah,
I don't mind a couple of more minutes from my end, because I think we did go over a bit, but out of respect to everybody on the call, I don't mind hearing from a couple of voices. I don't want to truncate.
It's just Howard's under stack, that's all.
Right.
I
Hey,
really
Howard,
want,
briefly, please.
Yeah, I really want to thank Alfredo, Angel, everybody else who was here long before I joined 6 months ago. I think this has been a really positive meeting, but I want to bring up one specific issue. If people are interested or already working on this, please contact me. My email is in the chat. I'll put it in there again. The winter for most of the Midwest and the Northeast is supposed to be much colder and much snowier than normal. Whereas, particularly for those who use gas, but also for using oil, it's going to be much, much more expensive to heat people's homes, whatever kind of homes we live in. This is going to cause a major crisis. I'm sure people are familiar with what's going on in the UK, but it could be as bad here in the United States. So if you're interested in working on this, or you already know people working on this, strategy is really clear. We've got to get people help through LIHEAP if they qualify, and we've got to put demands specifically on the government that include no shutoffs, not just by December, but much before then.
Okay, thank you, Howard. Angel?
Hi, thank you. I want to, also thank Cal and Sally and our whole continuations team. And I put something in the chat, which is one of the first people to address us was Mumia Abu Jamal, and there's going to be a court date for him on October 19th. So in the chat, freemumia.com, for those who want more information about showing up at the court. And today, I'm at the People's Forum. There was a seminar today about Peltier. So also look into his case as well. To also say, I think Jose Velasquez said it very well, but just to say, please be on the lookout for our upcoming email link, so you can vote on the slate and on the work plan proposal, and also. Be on the lookout for our upcoming meeting, which would be again in February. of next year. So unless there anything else to be said, I want to thank this great group of people. I'm really appreciate being in the same room with you, although not literally, but virtually. And maybe at some point we all be in the same room if we can work it out. Hasta luego.
Thank you,
Okay,
Angel.
thank you, everybody. Thank you.
everyone.
Thank
So,
you.
Oh, okay,
forward
everybody
to
open
working-
your mics and say goodbye. This is
Bye.
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 Gracias.
Bye.
Bye. Gracias.
Yeah.
Venceremos.
Bye. Venceremos.
Sí, hasta luego.
And we will not
Hasta
perish.
la victoria
pronto.
siempre.
Okay.
Oh,
Angel, you have another good video to play for going out?
I don't have a video, but I could sing a few songs.
I
Go
know.
ahead, Angel.
Una
Go ahead.
musiquita ahí para salir bailando. So we go for music and where we are and go and say goodbye dancing.
Cal, I'm going to stop the recording after I follow you, Cal.
Okay.